Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is a special program on Pod TV. It's my name is Sasha Star and my friend Shakil Latimer from Australia. Now I'm from Canada, so we have no Americans on this show, and therefore we are going to discuss nothing but American economy, politics, and anything else, whatever we will come up with. Shakil, welcome to the show, and please, I'll allow you to start.
But no, well, thank you for having me. I think we started to get into some issues on our last media show, and I thought it would be good for us to have another show on the eve of their election. I think the time difference. I think they've got both candidates have got a couple of campaign events left, and then that's it. It's all over, and tomorrow is the day. Almost 24 hours, just a little bit over 24 hours from now, we'll start to see the polls closed on the East Coast. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. It's a very anticipated election, I think, an unusual one. So, lots of people have got very strong opinions across the world. So we were talking about some issues with Trump and Harris based on their economic policies and also their character. So I think that's probably a good place to start. What would you like to discuss first, economics or character?
Well, if you're talking about economics, of course, we are talking about economics as it's applicable to U.S. election because to discuss economy, what economy? In my opinion, Donald Shop's economy, or a little cleaners, little shop which employs 5, 6 people. It's also economy. Now there is a world economy which includes superpowers like U.S., China, and some others. So, as it's applicable to election, I would like to remind you that just 3, 4 weeks ago, Trump was on the issue of economy. He was ahead, well over 20% over Kamala Harris. And today, it's only 2%. Still, Trump is ahead, but only 2%. It's margin of error. If you're talking about, there are actually, in my opinion, four undeciding issues. It's economy, as we already discussing. It's obviously women's issue, abortion, that stuff. Now Kamala is ahead, I don't know, 22, 23%. It's like incredible lead, which is expected. Then we have, of course, foreign policy. Foreign policy, they don't provide really numbers, but I would assume that Trump is ahead because the foreign policy under Biden administration of Kamala had very little to say, but at least she was there, and it cannot be hidden. And I think in this department, Biden's record is close to disastrous, let's put it this way, in my opinion. It's close to it. It's not there, but it's very close to it. And what else? I forgot about immigration.
Immigration.
Now, what immigration is, I don't think that either one has a great record in immigration. But again, because the last 4 years it was Biden's and Kamala's department, I don't think that they succeeded on immigration really that much. However, on immigration and the other issues, even economy, the margin is very slim, unlike abortion issue. So the ladies will outvote in huge majorities. It already shows on the preliminary results of postal votes. But in Canada, we don't have postal votes. And, we have, like, whatever day it's elections, I'm going to elect whoever I want. And that's it. I cannot vote before election or after election. I have to vote on the election day. Maybe it's inconvenient, but I think it represents probably more viable and grounded result Then when you have these votes and this votes and after votes, and some came but not on the day of election, but 3 days later, and you have to count those. Just like in Pennsylvania, for example, they will maybe not have result until later this week. So in all this, my feel is that women could carry Kamala's winning. On the other hand, Trump has chances by all means, and he may carry it out. We'll see tomorrow, right, Shaquille? What do you say?
I think the police are coming to get you at the moment, aren't they? Perhaps you said something about Trudeau. I can hear the siren. I can hear the old sirens in the background. Look, I think I think the polls can be a little bit misleading, and I think when you drill down into what the polls are saying, it could indicate other things. Now, look, nobody's a clairvoyant. We'll find out in 24 hours, hopefully. Not being able to count and know what the election results are on the same night, I have a real issue with that. I think that America is making itself look a bit foolish by not being able to determine that. It's understandable when there's an outlier or there's something that's gone wrong, like in the George Bush, Al Gore election, something went wrong, and so they had to work through that. But you're used to seeing electoral results be known with some degree of confidence on the same night. So this is not positive. We've got to address a couple of points with you. So I think you're right. The four major points is inflation and the inflation / the economy. I'll put those into one category. Immigration, abortion rights, and foreign policy, let's call it. I think on three of those four issues, Trump appears to be stronger. Or if you don't think Trump is stronger, the Biden-Harris team has looked weaker. So I think that is a problem. Let's talk about the women vote. So women generally turn out more than men in elections anyway. So what we have to find out is, are those women likely to vote for Kamala Harris? Well, she's run a campaign ad essentially suggesting that women should tell their husbands that they're voting for Trump and then go into the ballot and, secretly vote for it. Well, look, if I was if I had a partner now, and I've certainly been with women before, they have oftentimes taken a different political position to the one I have taken. I've never had a problem with that. I'll try and persuade them that my view is better. They'll try and persuade me that their view is better. And then, you go to the election, you go and vote, you might tease each other a little bit, and that's it, right? You don't let that come between you. So I think that was pretty disingenuous of her. But it also indicates something. It indicates that she is not as popular with women as what she might think she is, or as what people might think she is. And when you drill down on the numbers, you find a couple of things that I think would be quite worrisome for Democrats. Firstly, that the enthusiasm amongst Republican women is substantially higher than the enthusiasm amongst Democratic women. The next part is abortion specifically. Well, we're seeing where it was at like 40, 48%, something like that. We're now seeing that for women under the age of 30, I think the rates are around 35% are actually putting that as one of their core issues. And that's only for women in their 30, below the age of 30. And those numbers taper off as women get older. We also know that young people generally don't vote, are not that strong a voting bloc. They often, just don't turn up. And of those that do, where are they going to be voting? Because, arguably a heap of young liberal women voters in California is not necessarily going to do anything to the national election. So I'm not sure that the women vote is actually going to help her that much. And I think that is largely countered by the fact that Donald Trump has such a significant lead with men. Who she is obviously failing with. And I think young men are much more enthusiastic about voting for Trump than young women are voting for Kamala Harris. So I consider that to be a real problem.
Why do you think is that young men would overwhelmingly vote for Trump, but not young women for Kamala? Where did you take that?
The polls are indicating that. The polls, when they're talking about enthusiasm, I can't remember off the top of my head which one I looked at, but it was fairly recently when they have been polling on enthusiasm. A lot of young women are saying, yeah, we like Harris and, we don't like Donald Trump and stuff like that, but they're not particularly motivated to go to the polls, whereas a lot of young men are. And I think that young men are for much of the same reason that Donald Trump is somebody that people tend to either hate or love. A lot of young men feel like they've been left behind. A lot of young men feel like they're being lectured to. They feel like, it's toxic masculinity and it's this and that. And they, people haven't changed that much. Young people haven't changed that much since I was a kid. And surely from when you were a kid, you want to meet a nice girl or you want to meet a nice guy and, you want to date a little bit, maybe fall in love and all that sort of stuff. This is what young people are doing. And I think that men are feeling as though they can't even approach young women today. And certainly they're expressing that. I mean, Bill Maher did a program on this. A lot of young men feel as though it's too dangerous to even approach a good-looking girl. And girls are complaining about feeling lonely and not being able to connect and, not knowing what to do. So I think that there's a symptom there. And I think that Trump is making it okay for young men to be manly. Now, of course, the Liberals will say, well, it's toxic for you to be attracted to Donald Trump's bravado and all of his bluster and all of that sort of stuff. And people will say, look at the way Donald Trump talks. He comes out, he says such caustic, horrible things. But then there are some men that are like, yeah, that's right. I want to be able to come out and say, I don't give a shit what you think. I'm going to go and do my thing. So, yeah, that's the thing. I think it's not so much about how we feel. It's about what is going to be attractive to people. And I don't think that Harris is. The other thing I'll just say, I don't want to ramble for too long. I'd like to give you a chance to respond to a couple of things. But I want to just talk about the whole campaign here. Harris was such an unpopular, you know what I'm going to say. She was such an unpopular VP that Raskin and Nancy Pelosi and many other high-ranking Democrats wouldn't even confirm that they thought that she was the best person to be the VP on the ticket under Biden. All of a sudden, Biden drops out. And all of a sudden, she just catapults into stardom, and she's the best thing since sliced bread. I'm not buying it. I think the media has given her a good shot, and I'm not buying it. I just don't think it's the case. I think we saw in the betting markets that Donald Trump went from a 67% lead down to only a 53-point lead, and as of about an hour ago, he was pushing back up towards the 60% mark again. I think that there's every chance that this will be an electoral blowout for Donald Trump. And I can point to many reasons why I think the Democrats have dropped the ball. Having said that, if Trump loses this election, or if Harris wins the election, I think that we can go back and we can look at Trump's campaign and say, all right, he was a madman. Because really, if you have a look at what he's done, he's broken all of the conventional rules in campaigning. He's either a genius or he's a complete imbecile. and how you'll determine that is whether or not he won. He hasn't listened to his advisors. He hasn't just attacked them when they're weak spots. He's gone all over the place and he's said all these things and he's tried to come out with a lot of his bluster and he's pulled a lot of political stunts. He hasn't chosen a VP that is a little bit different to him, like a Nikki Haley would have been. He's basically chosen a MAGA person, which is generally presidential candidates are advised not to do that. So he hasn't chosen someone to moderate him, and he hasn't chosen a woman. I mean, as I said on the last show, can you imagine if it was Trump, Condoleezza Rice? I mean, I think that would just annihilate the Democrats. So, he's taken a lot of risks. And they'll either pay off or they won't. He's either going to be a genius or he's going to be an imbecile.
What do you think would happen if Trump would indeed approach Condoleezza Rice to run as vice president with him? What do you think would be her response?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
I suggest something.
Well, you might want to say that she's unlikely to want the role, but I think that being given the opportunity to be a VP is a hard position for anybody to turn down. And look, just on Condoleezza Rice, I actually hope that she'll come back into the political fray. I've always liked her. She's still young enough, so I'd love to see her. I don't think she will, but I'd love to see her make a play. And for future Democratic leaders, I don't know if any speakers have gone on to become a president. I think there's only been one or two in the history of the United States. But I actually think that Hakeem Jeffries will make a good candidate in the future for the Democrats. But I just don't see it with Kamala Harris. I'm sorry, I just really don't, and I don't think that Tim Walz has helped.
It's about 22 some hours before we will see some results coming in. My theory is, of course, it is highly questionable situation where Trump would propose Condoleezza Rice to become his vice president nominee. I think she would, despite her exquisite taste and credentials, and she's a brilliant cello player, and she's a brilliant political scientist, or so on. And she hardly could hold herself not to tell him, just go to hell. That's exactly what she would tell him. Now, I would like you to envision the situation where, let's see, a woman who is approximately, as we discussed, so there are many questions that she has to go through within her head to select future president. And she would say, okay, economy, okay, probably Trump has a little bit of advantage. Not obvious, but still, maybe. Okay, on a border, I don't like so far whatever both of them are doing or not doing. And here comes the abortion issue, where women would outweigh this one subject of many. It would by far outweigh any other considerations, and they will definitely vote for Kamala, in spite of many shortcomings that she has. But that one issue will outweigh anything else put together. I've looked at many UK papers, by the way, during the day today. They are overwhelmingly against Trump, and not only UK papers, but many European papers just as well. You can hardly find any credible paper that would say that they believe that Trump would be a better president or argue a case for Trump. It just doesn't exist. So therefore, especially in a view of the latest Iowa poll, where Trump was leading 18%, last time, a month ago, it was 8%. Trump was leading, and now it's 3%. Kamala in Iowa, where Democrats even don't know where that state is. They never even dreamt about it. All of a sudden, Kamala now is ahead 3%. So this is incredibly bad news for Trump. There's some other issue I don't expect you to comment, but just to think about something. There are less and less Trump's advertisements, commercials on TV and everywhere else. And some commentators already asking, hey, where is the money? Musk financed your campaign and put hundreds of millions of dollars in this and that. And where's all that? Where's the money, my friend? Shaquille, have you heard about that?
Well, to some degree, but he didn't rate as much as GP either. Look, I'm just gonna address a couple of things. So, media in Europe and media in the UK is extremely left wing, with some exceptions like the Sun and places like that. It's extremely left wing. We've seen this in Europe. We've seen them play all sorts of political games in Europe. And what's been the result? The result has been that the populace of Europe has become enraged and have moved to the right. And even though Keir Starmer and the Labor Party won the last election, if you actually have a look at the way that people voted, I would make the argument that the UK actually moved to the right. They were just fed up with the Tories, and as they should be, because the Tories did such an abysmal job. And the Tories really, I mean, they let the country down so much because they had such a great opportunity after Brexit to do something really positive in the UK, and they haven't done so. So, yeah, hopefully Nigel Farage or somebody else will be able to sort them out. To this poll in Iowa, I think when you see an outlier like that, you have to ask why. Like, what happened? How does it happen that overnight
women women in Iowa, women in Iowa, women everywhere. That's
Well,
all. You're not escape
Well,
it.
I don't believe that, because when they're asked, as I said before, women are not putting abortion at the top of their list as the things that they care about. Some are, but not as a group. Now, this poll, like, what would have happened in one night? Because remember that he went from 67% to 55% on the betting markets in one night. How could that be? And it's based on one poll from Des Moines. It was run by Democrats. I'm not buying it. I don't believe that it's accurate. And also, it's worth remembering that Iowa is the first presidential caucus. Very hard to do anything without it. Well, the Democrats moved it from there to South Carolina. So, there's not a great deal of love up there in Iowa for the Dems. I don't think that that's a swing state. I mean, it'd be like Trump coming out and saying, or a poll that came out and said, "Oh, Trump's just taken a 3-point lead in Maryland or in Massachusetts or something." You'd have to, or even a place where I think he's got a shot like New Hampshire. You'd have to say, hang on a minute, how does he all of a sudden have a jump like that that's showing up in this one poll? I just don't buy it. I think the surprises will come in on the election, like at the election results themselves. I think that's where the surprises will come, because I don't think the polls are very well able to even assess where everybody's at. I'll say this though: I actually hope that this is a landslide one way or the other, because if it's a landslide for Trump, then, and when I say landslide, I mean something like mega, something outrageous that nobody would be expecting, 400, 450, something like that, a sort of Reagan, Bush, Nixon type win. The reason I say that is, if it is that convincing and that overwhelming, then I think the Democrats would have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, we're not in line with the American values. Perhaps we've pushed some issues too far. We need to come back to the core values that Americans have. And by them doing so, it makes America stronger, because you've got a two-party political system for a reason. And this is a way for them to take corrective measures. Same thing the other way around. If Kamala Harris wins and absolutely demolishes the Republicans by a 400 or 450, electoral college landslide, it says to the Republicans, you guys have left too many people behind. Your positions on abortion, your positions on immigration, your positions on all these different things, you've left too many people behind, and you're out of touch with the American people. And again, I'd make the same argument. It means that Republicans are forced then to come back, in line with traditional American values. And that makes America stronger, because you've then got two political parties that have been told something very, very loudly. Unfortunately, in the last couple of election cycles, the results have been so close that people haven't necessarily looked at it in those terms, except for when Trump beat Hillary Clinton. It was, okay, maybe the Dems are out of touch, but I don't think they realised quite how much they were out of touch by. Now, let's go to foreign policy. Do you believe that Kamala Harris would be able to negotiate an outcome or negotiate anything without being laughed at by Putin, by Kim Jong-un, by perhaps a slightly more friendly President Xi of China, or any other adversary, Iran, Saudi Arabia, countries that are trying to grow like India? That's a very important part of BRICS. Do you think she can negotiate these things properly?
I don't think that Kamala Harris will negotiate anything with Putin. United States of America today have 15,000 tanks, of which only 31 were sent to Ukraine. Imagine that if at least 500 tanks would be sent to Ukraine, it would not diminish the ability of the United States to defend itself. Against whom? Mexico? Canada? No, you don't need 15,000 tanks for that. So you are spending $1 trillion, building more and more tanks and many other weapons to just so they are somewhere just in some kind of a place where nobody even knows where that place is, and they're just sitting there doing absolutely nothing instead of going take 500 600 tanks, take a couple of hundred F-16s, and oh, Mr. Putin, where are you? Oh, we cannot find you. What's happened to you, Mr. Putin? F-16s came, tanks came. Oh, so you were hiding? Come on here. Let's fight. You don't need to make any deal with Mr. Putin. He is weak. He is a
Okay,
military is weak.
okay, but
You don't
you're not
need
okay.
anything.
All right. Well, firstly, that's not really an answer to my question. So
There's no negotiation with
if okay,
the
but
enemy.
hang on, hold up, hold up, hold up,
Oh, come on, Shaquille. What are you talking about?
hold up. I've used the term negotiation. That didn't mean that I'm suggesting that they need to negotiate and cede territory. If that's what it sounds like that's what you're taking my question as. Everything you've just brought up is very, very valid. And in fact, Zelensky, I believe that he said he's only received like 10% of the funding that was committed to him or something like that. So, okay, well, what the hell is America doing there? Right. So, and its allies. So the question is this. If Trump says, look, we don't know, but Trump says he's going to pick up the phone and he'll have this war ended before he's even inaugurated. Now, okay, we don't know, but here's the question. If Trump picks up the phone and says, hey, Putin, exactly what you just said, we've got tanks, we've got fighter jets, we've got this and that, right? Get out of there. You get out of there, I'll lift the sanctions or do something, but you need to get out of the Ukraine, right? If he said that versus Kamala Harris trying to make a threat, well, what do you like? Who do you think? And that's the question I'm asking you. Who do you think is more likely to get a result?
It's absolutely incorrect.
Look, I'm not going to keep rewording. No, Sasha, hang on a second.
It's my turn.
Hang on a second. I'm not going to.
I understand.
No, I'm not going to keep rewording my question. My question is, who do you think is better to be able to fix this, Trump or Harris?
Absolutely, Harris, 100%. Trump is a what should I say? It's a spent force. Nobody afraid in the world of Trump. They all understand what kind of a balloon he is. There is no substance beside making a little bit more money in real estate and buying this or selling that. He is nothing. Absolutely. So therefore, he is not forced to be reckoned with in Europe or in Middle East or anywhere. He is a spent force. So now when he was, I have tanks, I have this and that, show us, bring it in. And he is weak in his knees to do anything like that because this is not a way for him to make money. Trump is there for himself, not for America or Europe or Ukraine or anybody. He is there for himself. So by sending tanks and planes and so on, how he's going to make any money? He's not going to make any money. So he's going to say, okay, Putin, I'll give you, how much Ukraine you need? Okay, 30%, 50%, I'll give you 65%. Ukraine, give him 65%. So Ukraine is, are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? Get the hell out of here. That's where Trump will really see a huge difference between where he was 5-6 years ago and where he is today. He's a spent force. Nobody needs him. Nobody wants to talk to him. Nobody wants to see him anymore. That's it. That's why he is not a person to be in a role. Now, Kamala Harris, she's not going to negotiate with Putin, period. She will send everything necessary, and she will work with European countries, which understand that there is no deal with Mr. Putin possible. He understands only one thing, is the strength. You have to show and project the strength. Once you do that, there could be some possibilities to negotiate something, but not before that. You cannot negotiate unless from the position of strength with Putin. Trump is a spent force, period.
Look, I find that I think you've got such a biased view about Donald Trump. To be honest with you, Sasha, I think it's clouding your judgment because look, Trump has been known for being very, very aggressive. He uses the force of the United States, and he has threatened in all sorts of ways, from tariffs to sanctions to blocking immigrants from certain countries, to withdrawing funding from NATO, to pulling out of the Paris Accords, etc. He even threatened to withdraw support from the United Nations if he doesn't get his way. So the idea that he's not prepared to threaten Russia, I don't think that's true. And if the only thing you're saying to me is that he wouldn't do it unless he can make a profit out of it, well, I don't see any evidence of that. I don't think that Kamala Harris is going to make those sorts of threats. One, because I don't think it's the kind of person she is. And two, if the Democrats were going to do that, then why wouldn't they have done it already? We've already seen rumors that there have been, contracts worth hundreds of millions and even billions of dollars to help rebuild the Ukraine being awarded to some of the most sizable private equity firms in the United States. So, somebody's making a lot of money out of these sorts of conflicts. And I do actually think that Trump's the better person to deal with it. But let's switch to immigration. So immigration's the next issue. Or we can go back to abortion if you want to. Just on that abortion issue, one of the other things that I would say is it's not clear to me how Harris intends to fix the abortion issue. If they want to have a reinstatement of Roe v. Wade, how exactly are they proposing to do that? I don't think that they actually have the power to do it in the first place. But come to immigration, or respond to that, we'll come to immigration.
First thing first, she has to increase the size of Supreme Court. Because with this Supreme Court, you cannot do anything, period. You might as well, your president, Kamala Harris is our president. Next day, she might as well resign and get somebody else to be president, because with this Supreme Court you cannot govern, period. So you have to increase. It's not engraved in stone that for next 500 years there has to be 9 judges. Where did you see that? It could be 11, could be 13, 15, and 19. It doesn't matter. It has to be increased to wrestle the Republican majority, which is absolutely incredible, on the United States institutions like presidency, like Senate or House. You can't govern. It has to be 3 equal branches. And today you don't have it. You have 2 equal branches, and the third one is on top of those 2. How can you govern? No, you can't. So this number one.
Should the Republicans just disappear? Should the Republicans, in your view, just not exist, and America should just have one party and just have the Democrats in control?
No, I'm not saying that. They have. Hold on. You asked me a question, did you?
Mm-hmm.
They have to reorganize themselves. They have to find the value, what they're standing behind, and build actually new party, because Trump completely destroyed Republican Party. There is no Republican Party anymore. That's party of Trump, which will be defeated tomorrow, and which will be out for the next 800 years. Okay, so that's the end of story. So Republicans, Reaganites, they have to rebuild the party from the scratch, find out the idea, find the right people who can amplify this idea, and convince American people that this is much better way to build up a prosperous society than what Democrats are offering. That's what has to happen.
Sasha, firstly, I don't see any reason why the Republicans and Donald Trump would do that when they have got close to half of the country voting for them. Secondly, based on what you've just said, the logical conclusion would be that the Supreme Court is not legitimate if the Republicans are in control of it. The Supreme Court is only legitimate if the Democrats are in control of it.
No, at least 5-4
for decades,
but not 3. No.
So for decades now, we've had a liberal bias in the Supreme Court. Now, for the first time in a very, very long time, the Republicans have the majority. And now it's like, well, that's no good. Well, you know what we have to do? We have to fix that. We can't have the Republicans be in control. No. The Republicans being in control means it's an illegitimate court. So what we'll do is we'll change the rules and we'll stack the Supreme Court. Now, I find it so fascinating when Democrats in America tell me that, because I ask them what laws or what things that have gone, what cases have gone before the Supreme Court where they've made a ruling you don't agree with, right?
Absolutely. This
And
year,
invariably,
complete immunity of president.
and
That was done, and it was on purpose done in 6 months to delay inevitable trials of Trump, so it would be after election. Okay.
and invariably the answers that they will give me is the Dobbs decision, the overturning Roe v. Wade. They'll talk about presidential immunity, and there's a few other cases that they'll bring up. Well, those are 5-4 or 6-3 decisions. Now, you're seeing a lot more 6-3 decisions because of the partisan split. That is correct. But those are sorts of decisions. Now, how frequently do you get 5-4 or 6-3 decisions? Not that many. Most of the cases are decided 8-1, 9-0, etc. So what we're talking about is you want to overhaul the Supreme Court or stack the Supreme Court because of a few landmark rulings that you don't agree with. I don't think that's the way. I don't think that's the way to respect the democratic process. The Republicans were in power at the time; they nominated their justices. The Democrats will have their time again. But talking about ending the filibuster, talking about stacking the Supreme Court, talking about doing all those sorts of things that undermines the institutions that have been created in a certain way for a certain reason, have been like that for decades and centuries, I don't think makes a lot of sense. The same reason why I don't think it makes a lot of sense for this push that the national popular vote should be the determining the determiner of who the president is. The United States was specifically founded not to have that because of the perils of democracy and absolute democracies. They wanted to make sure that everybody in all the states had an equal chance to participate in the electoral process. You change that, I think that there's a new question that states should be able to ask to say this is not the union that we agreed to join up to, and they should be able to leave. Now they're never going to leave, and I'm not advocating for that. But what I'm saying is that if you start throwing out the rules because your side is losing, it comes back and bites you later on. And the filibuster is a good example of that. Now let's talk about immigration for a moment. So you, from what I've gathered, you seem to be unhappy with the idea of Donald Trump going on this mass deportation campaign. Leaving that aside, in relation to the immigration, the huge immigration numbers, and it's obviously causing a lot of division within the United States and straining the resources of smaller towns and cities. Who do you think is better equipped to deal with it? Kamala Harris says that she's going to start doing things differently. Do you think that she's the best person, or do you think Trump's the best person to deal with immigration?
Neither one.
No, you've only got a binary choice: her or Trump.
Oh, so I have to choose. I would choose.
They're the two people we're talking about, right? Well, that's what we're here to discuss.
Well, I think that U.S. needs immigrants. It needs a lot of immigrants. Whether they're legal or illegal, it's a secondary issue and very insignificant, in fact. And I'll tell you why. Because both legal and illegal immigrants are arriving to the country. It takes 6-7 years for them to learn the language, to find the job, to rent apartment or a house, and maybe set up a little business or something like that. And in 7 years, 8 years, if you wish, they are becoming productive citizens of the United States. And there is no difference between legal and illegal immigrants. The difference only is that illegal immigrants, they did not pay $10,000 to their lawyer. So it was only lawyers who have to complain about proliferation of illegal immigrants because they didn't get their $10,000 for doing nothing. Just have some paperwork that any idiot can do for $200. So that's the only issue. So leave them alone. Let them live. Let them build new life. They're taking jobs that normal American people will not take it. They will go on welfare. They will go on unemployment line, but they are not going to do the jobs what are doing legal and illegal immigrants just as well. So open the door, allow people in, but from that point on, get a new rules. What is the right way to immigrate or move to United States? What has to be done? What's the process? How you do it? Where you do it? And so on. Establish reasonable rules. Right now, we don't have reasonable rules. That's a problem.
Well, I didn't ask you about what the correct levels of immigration should be to the United States, though. The polls show that 70 to 80% of Americans are not happy with the level of immigration that they've had. Harris has said that she's going to reduce the numbers of immigrants. Donald Trump says that he's going to reduce the numbers of immigrants. He's going to continue to build or finish building the wall, and is going to go on the biggest mass deportation campaign. When it comes to running an immigration policy that is in line with what the majority of Americans expect and want, regardless of whether or not it's good or bad for them, do you think that Donald Trump or Kamala Harris is more in line with the views of Americans?
I disagree with you that 80% Americans are against immigration, because unless you're talking about like borderline states like Texas, like Arizona perhaps, in northern states, people don't care about immigration. It doesn't affect them one way or another. Places like California, they cannot exist without immigration because there are so many work available that American, as I said before, will never consider doing, and you need immigration.
No, but again, look, that's not the issue. That's not the issue at hand. I mean, I agree with you that there are a lot of jobs in the United States that the local population doesn't want to do. Same as Australia for that matter. So why not have special category visas that are very easy to get, so you can get seasonal workers that can come in there, and if they want to stay for longer, they can make an agreement that says, hey, look, you're going to live on site, you're going to work for perhaps a lower wage than you otherwise would have gotten, but you're going to work up. And after a period of time, you'll be entitled to have permanent residency, and you've got a pathway to citizenship. You just have to earn it. If you don't have the money to be able to buy your way in, you just have to earn it. See, the thing is that the people that come in under those sorts of schemes, because similar schemes do exist, the people that come in under those schemes, after they actually become citizens, they tend to vote for the Republicans because they tend to be quite patriotic about the country. People that have come in who have been let in, okay, they tend to vote for Democrats because they like the loose policies that allow them to bring their family members and etc. over. So this has become very politicized, and it's not about letting immigrants come in. Of course, I support that. My family live in the United States. My family immigrated to Australia and Canada, etc. So of course, I support immigration, but I don't support that sort of immigration. And I think, you may not want to acknowledge it, but I think that when people are polled in the United States, you actually have a look at what they say, you have a look at what the poll results are. People are not happy with this kind of immigration where they don't know who these people are. We're seeing an increase in the propensity for young people to be abused, for human trafficking to exist, and it's not necessary. And it's also not necessary to have this amount of people come in. It's overwhelmed their services. Certainly they can have immigration, and certainly that's a positive thing, I think, for any country. Canada especially could do with more immigrants, but you don't bring so many people in that it overwhelms your services, where you've got, people in New York are reporting that, their children can't go to school because the schools have been turned into sleeping quarters for homeless, for immigrants. The people are complaining that money is being spent on foreign affairs and on immigrants, whilst the local population are being left behind. And I feel as though you don't want to actually admit that, yeah, Trump's probably more likely going to resolve that issue.
How?
Well, how is she going to do it? He's going to resolve it by doing exactly what we've talked about. He's going to try to deport people, especially those people that commit crimes.
People who are already live in the United States and have families and working and maybe have some assets. How, under what pretense you are going to deport them?
If they're not,
how you identify people that you want to deport?
If they're not entitled to be.
Talk of crazy person even to think about deporting people who already for several years live in the United States and have families, have business, are working, they have kids in schools or so on, and talking about deporting them. Oh my God, this is a crazy talk from beginning to the end. Shakil, admit it, please.
If they're not entitled to be there, and especially if they commit crimes,
Who
then
is
they
to
should.
say they're entitled or not? Who is to say? People live there for years now. They build a new lives. They don't need Trump or Kamala or anybody else. They can sustain themselves. They build new life. How you can even think about deporting these people unless you're crazy?
If they're not entitled to be there and they've been caught committing crimes, Trump has been talking about removing some funding from sanctuary cities, etc., if they do not hand them over to INS, I think it is, because he wants to get rid of these people. Now, yes, there's going to be some hard decisions made that are going to potentially break up families, but I think, as cruel as that might sound, I think that is in line with the expectations of the American people. Now,
No,
you seem
don't
to be
talk about
stopping.
American
Come on,
people. You're
Sasha, let me,
amplifying the
Sasha,
agenda of Republicans.
Sasha,
You're
let me speak.
listen.
Let me speak
Talk
for a
about.
minute.
I want to listen to your thoughts.
No,
Not
but you've interrupted me 4 times now. Let me
please.
finish, please. Yeah, you seem to be suggesting that this is, the most ridiculous thing that you've ever heard.
Absolutely.
Obama was considered to be the deporter in chief. Bill Clinton deported something like 13 million people.
I
So,
never
like,
heard about
if
that.
Democrats can do that, why can't the Trump team do it? I don't see what the issue is.
Hold on. You're talking about Clinton, who deported from United States of America 13 million people. Is that right?
Look, I might be wrong on those numbers, but I thought the numbers were something like that.
Can you find a link to something?
Well,
Because I
if
never even
Mark's in
heard.
if Mark is in the background, perhaps he can look it up. But in
I
any case,
never heard about that at all.
in any case, if what you're suggesting is that Donald Trump can't deport a big number of the people that have come in recently,
You can do it
and
physically.
who aren't
There's no
entitled.
way of doing that. What it's going to bring U.S. Army to go from town to town, from street to street, to identify people who possibly illegally live in
Well,
there.
you've
How
got
is
to
it do it?
you've got to start somewhere, and certainly those people that are committing crimes and things like that, those people that are actually being funded, that are receiving money from the government because of their status, are pretty easy to identify, surely.
Shaquille, come on, you're talking nonsense. He is not going to deport those people who are receiving any help from U.S. government. He wants to deport people who already live for a number of years but arrived illegally. And so he, first of all, he has to find them. He has to prove that they arrived illegally. He has to arrange a deportation mechanism. Based on what? He needs what? To go to court or to get somewhere a decision to, okay, that person has to be deported. So these people, they're, let's see, they have sources to find a reasonable lawyer. And he will take this process for 7-8 years deportation. I know
Right.
in Toronto there were some deportation, but there was a Polish people who already built a reasonably good life in Toronto. They had business for 7 years. They had 2 kids born in Canada, and they wanted to do deportation.
All right, so I'm just gonna read to you what Mark Lee has put. Is quoting somebody else. According to an analysis by the Migration Policy Institute, more than 12 million people were deported, either removed or returned from the United States during the Clinton administration. More than 10 million were removed or returned during the Bush administration. Far fewer, more than 5 million, were removed or returned during the Obama administration. So, are you trying to tell me that Trump can't do this? Look, let's just move past this point for a minute. I'm just going to address your comments about Toronto. Look, I am aware when I was over in Canada last time that there was some sort of case where a person who was accused of murdering somebody, basically they timed out of the system because there wasn't enough judges or something like that had occurred. And so they didn't have a speedy trial and they were basically released. Now, I'm misquoting and misremembering the story, but it was something along those lines. So, look, I think that having the requisite number of judges and people to deal with these issues is important. Again, I think that you've got to start somewhere. The 2 places where I think Trump is likely to actually be able to make a difference here is 1, to stop the flow, and then 2, to rapidly do something about the immigrants that are already here. Now, the Harris camp, or the Biden-Harris team, were talking about increasing the number of judges and officers that could actually deal with asylum cases, etc., so these people could be processed. And Biden himself said, little while ago, the last year, he said that if we could do that, we could actually process people. If they weren't entitled to be there, they could be removed within 6 months or 12 months, which means that they wouldn't want to come over the border in the first place. So I don't see why Trump wouldn't be able to initiate the same sort of thing. Increase funding so that their claims can be assessed. Deal with people that are already receiving funding, support in order to be able to survive in the United States. Round them up, process them. If they're not entitled to be there, they can be deported, as well as reinstituting a Remain in Mexico policy and actually putting on the Mexican government and saying, hey, you need to assist us with the unfettered amount of immigration coming across our border.
So what's new information here is a top domestic policy advisor to Obama, Cecilia Munoz, and is now with the left-leaning New America Foundation, said in a phone interview. She argues that Obama prioritized deporting people convicted of serious crimes and recent arrivals who had no criminal records. Okay, so only those people who already arrived a number of years ago, only those who committed crimes, those people should be removed and deported. Now, if they already became U.S. citizens, then I don't know a U.S.
Well, you can't deport an American as a U.S. citizen, but J.D. Vance just recently said that he wants to start somewhere. You're going to start with people that are convicted of committing serious offences. All right, so I think we've dealt with immigration. I think we've dealt with abortion. We've dealt with what was the other one that we talked about? Immigration, abortion,
foreign policy.
So the big one is economics. So I think what we've established is that nothing has changed, that I like Donald Trump and think he's a better president, and you think the complete opposite. So I'm glad that we're both consistent still.
No, I don't think opposite. I don't think that Harris is going to be a good president. I'm not saying that at all. But there is no choice. If on one side you have a former prosecutor who climbed the ladder, and maybe she is not ideal and her policies are far from ideal, but at least she is proven that she is part of the system. Trump is outsider of the system. He's not part of the system. Finally, he's been committed all kind of impeachments and crimes, and I don't want to even go there. But as Fareed Zakaria said yesterday on his show, with all things being equal, Kamala or Trump, one event, namely January 6th, 2021, absolutely defeats all logic of watching.
Okay, let me just come in, because I was about to say so, and I was being a bit tongue in cheek, right? I think that Trump would be the better of the two candidates. I know that you have such dislike for Donald Trump, and it sounds like you're saying that anybody that runs against him, and that's fine. We're consistent. Now, I'm not going to go into the economic issues unless you want to, in the interest of time, and also because we've already discussed them at length now on a few different shows. So let me ask you this, and you can ask me the same question. I'll be happy to give you an answer. Given what you're saying, is there a candidate that you can think of, or a politician that you can think of in the United States, that if that person was running against Donald Trump, you'd prefer Donald Trump?
No.
So there's not a single...
No one in all United States, even if it would be a criminal who killed 12 people and committed unthinkable crimes, I still would be vote for this man, because Trump is a great danger for America and all world, by the way, too.
So you'd prefer to see they're deceased now, but a Jeffrey Dahmer or a Charles Manson or someone like that in the White House than to see Donald Trump? Is that your?
Not necessarily. If it would be Josh Shapiro, for example, I wouldn't have any problems to vote for him. And I think Kamala Harris should make him vice president.
I agree with you, and she's pissed off the Jewish community by doing so, and the fact that she's running two different ads about Israel Palestine. She's running one ad in support of Palestine in Michigan and a different ad in support of Israel in Pennsylvania. You know, it's not going to fly. But now I've actually backed you into a corner, though, right? So you think that you could vote for anybody other than Donald Trump. So if JD Vance switched sides and was the Democrat nominee, would you vote for JD Vance over Donald Trump?
Well, if it has to be one of two and no other outcomes, he cannot be replaced, he cannot be anything. So you want me to say is that I will vote for JD Vance? Is that
That was very clever of me. I thought that was very clever. I get a point for that one.
Yes, you get it. Bravo, Shakil, you got it. You got it. You're very clever.
Look, I don't have any I don't have any real animus towards Kamala Harris. I think she's hot, by the way. Not that that's relevant, but you look at photos of her when she was younger. She's a very attractive person. And in my experience, and that she's older than me, she's almost as old as my mother, but in my experience in very male-dominated places like politics, it can be a little bit hard to get ahead and be taken seriously if you're an attractive woman. And she's always been a very attractive woman. So there's no doubt in my mind that she would have had to fight pretty hard to get the successes that she's had. So I do admire that. And I do think that she genuinely cares. I think that she's misguided. I think that her ideas on policies, etc., are just a little bit misguided. If she wins, I hope that she does a really great job. But I just think that based on the current circumstances, the current condition of the United States, Donald Trump might be the best person to lead it. I think that in a funny kind of way, him not winning in 2020 means that he'll probably do a much better job if he becomes the president in 2024 or in 2025, technically. Only time will tell. But I'm certainly not going to be, crying and dramatically upset if Kamala Harris wins. I just don't feel like she's the right person to lead the United States right now. And I don't think that Tim Walz will ever be. I just don't think he's the right person to be in government at that level. I do think there are a number of Democrats that can step into those shoes in the next cycle. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens with Republicans after this. If Trump loses, how they'll regroup, and if he wins, what they're going to do in 2028. But
Shakil,
the people will elect the right person for the time.
Yeah, I think that tomorrow American people will decide who is the best president. Nor you nor me can make this decision. With Trump, another danger is he's obviously unwell. Obviously, he is not going to last 4 years. There is no way that he is capable of doing that. So in this case, J.D. Vance will become president. And that's where a real danger for American society. So that's why this is a very difficult time. I accept that Trump may just win this presidency tomorrow. But I hope that it's not going to happen. Okay.
Well, that's what people were saying about Biden's campaign, and somehow he's managed to sort of sleepwalk his way through. So I guess the last question in the time that's left, I think we've both expressed what we want to say. What do you think? Let's make a bold prediction. Nobody's going to know, but for a 10-cent bet, what do you think the results will be? You obviously think Harris is going to win. How big of a win do you think it'll be? And of the 7 states, which ones of those you think she's going to win? Do you think that she's going to flip anything?
I think she'll win 4, maybe even 5 out of the states. Her total will exceed 300 and probably will be closer to 350.
I got the exact opposite prediction. I think that Donald Trump will win all 7 of the states, and I think that he's going to end up flipping a couple of places, potentially Virginia, New Hampshire, New Jersey, and some others. So, and I think that his campaign will be closer to 350. So, I guess we're both pretty stubborn, like the way that we both play chess, stubborn and self-assured in our predictions. 24 hours time, we will certainly find out. Thank you for having me on, Sasha.
Great. Thank you very much, Shakil, and the best to all our listeners to survive tomorrow's day. Okay?
Yeah. God bless the United States, because heaven knows they need it.
Bye bye, everybody. Thank you.